Hello there. What is going on, everyone? Today we're talking about the Separatists for Star Wars Legion. What units are most likely to show up? This will be highly speculative. We're going to be talking about the things I think are most likely to show up in the not too distant future, based on other things that we've seen and where I feel like the faction is going. I want to hear from you guys. What are some of the things that you think are going to be showing up? If you want to go ahead and leave those down in the comments section before the video gets started, we will see how many of my guesses sync up to your guesses. Plus, you can keep this discussion going in the Discord, which is linked down in the video description below. If you guys are new here, we are still giving away a $25 Amazon gift card. All you have to do is be a subscriber and leave a comment on this or one of my videos. You can put that towards a Separatist expansion of your choice. And if you're subscribed and leave a comment, that's all it takes to enter to win that. Also, big thanks to today's sponsor, Luxury Playstyle. If you haven't seen these tokens already, we're getting closer and closer to holiday time. These make fantastic gifts. Check these out. Go to luxuryplaystyle.com and take a look. You're going to be amazed at the amazing tokens they have there. They're full metal. They're double-sided. They're kind of heavy. They are beautiful and shiny. You're going to absolutely love these. They're going to show up so beautiful on your tabletop, and they're going to make everybody that you're playing against really be like, whoa, what are those? Those are amazing. And plus, they're going to make you want to play your games more. They're absolutely fantastic. Use code Crabbok VIP. You're going to save 15% off your order. So go over to luxuryplaystyle.com and check them out. All right, so the Separatists, they are lean, mean, and full of steam. I don't even know what that means. I'm going to leave that in. We're going to keep going. So one of the first units that I'm going to put in here, I'm going to do this in order of likelihood. So maybe not the most popular, and maybe not going to be coming, but I think he should come, is Nute Gunray. I think because he kind of fits. I think, for one, he could pull double duty as somebody who could go in the droid invasion battle force, because he was definitely there during the Battle of Naboo. But some people will say, oh, well, he works better as a hostage, and that's why they put the Neimoidian hostage out there. And I can totally see that as an angle also. You could say Nute Gunray is already represented, but the hostage isn't Nute Gunray specifically, although it might look like him. It's not exactly him. It could be just any Neimoidian. So I feel like Nute Gunray himself as a commander should definitely work. Maybe he gets a bonus. Maybe he gets an entourage of droidicas or something like that. I feel like there's all kinds of really cool ways to make him work as like a cowardly sort of commander who is not really good at warfare, but has resources at his disposal to kind of flood the battlefield with extra droids. Maybe he gets an extra droidica as a result of that. That'd be kind of cool. Being able to run an extra support with him is always nice. If it's entourage, it doesn't have to be entourage. It could be direct droidica, which would also be really, really cool, because droidicas, I for one think they're a really great unit, but they really suffer from order control. And the Separatists, while they have great B1 order control, don't always have the best way to get orders to non-AI or non-chaining units. So droidicas can, especially if you're running more than one, it can be difficult to get them all orders. So if he has direct droidica or entourage droidica, I feel like that's going to help things out quite a bit. Plus, he could have command cards that deal with that too. Maybe you get an extra droidica on the battlefield as for his one pip or something to that effect. Maybe it comes in with some wounds on it too, so it's not like a full health droidica, but you get a whole extra unit to shoot on one turn. I feel like there's so many thematic things they could do with him. And it doesn't all have to be droidicas either. It could. But just deal with kind of what we see from he's largely from him in the Phantom Menace, but also from his vendetta. Maybe he can give somebody bounty just this turn or something like that. Really expressing how much he wanted revenge on Padme Amidala in the Clone Wars and things like that. So there's a whole lot of things like that you could do. It'd be really interesting to kind of see how it all plays out. Speaking of characters from the films, we saw Poggle the Lesser in Episode 2, and I think Poggle the Lesser is a great way to kind of the leader of the Geonosians that we see in the film, kind of at that council where Dooku was kind of getting all the different Separatist leaders. Granted, everybody from there totally could work, but I think some are more likely than others. And since Geonosians would also work quite well as a core units or even a special forces units, there's lots of different Geonosian units that they could make. I think Poggle the Lesser would be a great entry point into Geonosians, either as a sub-faction or battle force, or as just a straight-up Separatist unit. I feel like they could probably work both ways. And while he did ally himself with the Separatists, it is possible that Poggle or other Geonosians could certainly show up as mercs. I think that's one of the problems that the Separatists have, is that most of the units that they have they did so much recruitment that you could make a case for almost anybody being some type of mercenary unit that could work with other people, because much of what we see from the Separatists is kind of bringing other units together, and so like almost like Dooku is like by himself and he just hired all mercs, right? And so I feel like, you could go two different ways. I think for Geonosians, they just work better straight up as Separatists. I feel like that works a little bit better instead of making them mercs, because I don't think while they certainly could work with other people, I think you see them all the time pretty much allied with the Separatists, outside of a few book appearances where the Empire kind of enslaved them and kept them building the Death Star at the beginning until they decided to exterminate them all, which was all a pretty sad story. Moving forward, outside of just named characters, before we get to outside of named characters, we've got Savage Opress. Savage Opress has a couple of different ways that he could show up in this game, and I think there's two ways. I think there's the Merc way, but first, before we get a Merc, much like Asajj Ventress, because Asajj Ventress is coming in as a Separatist, and I think that tells us that they can do multiple versions. I think Savage Opress comes in to the game as a Separatist also. You kind of look at him as like Season 3 kind of Dooku's assassin, or maybe Season 2, or Dooku's assassin, right? His early appearance in the Clone Wars. When he shows up, Dooku kind of makes him to be his assassin and to kind of replace Savage or Asajj Ventress. I'm getting Asajj and Savage. Their names are so they flow off the tongue so similarly. But yes, I think you put him in here. Now, granted, the image I have is probably the version that they would use for Merc version of Savage Opress. But I think he's definitely worth two different versions. And I think I'd like to see him first show up as a Separatist and make him a straight up complete awesome assassin. And maybe more deadly than Maul, right? Maul was certainly the better of the two, but maybe he just has more raw strength. Like maybe he's got more dice. Maybe he's got like only 3 red, but maybe he has like 6 white. So he actually has more dice total than Maul, but it's less refined because the white dice are kind of fickle, right? But maybe he's got things like that where he focuses on raw power and not so much on his control of the Force. I think there's definitely a place for units like that, and and I think it could absolutely work. Next up, non-named units. We've got the D1 Series Droids. These are otherwise known as the Aerial Battle Droid. These were like a Techno-Union droid that we saw in Season 7 of the Clone Wars, kind of based on the initial B1 Battle Droid design, but heavily modified to include wings. They were first really introduced in Season 7 of the Clone Wars, and a lot of us were like, I've never seen these before, but they could show up in Legion. And I think, that's one of the problems that the Clone Wars factions have, and a lot of factions are kind of running into, is that it's becoming harder and harder to find new core units that aren't already represented in the game. And I think this is a perfect option to give the droids, a unit that has jump, or has jump 1 or jump 2 potentially on a core. It could be really cool. I don't think you have to make these guys special forces. I think they could be core. They didn't seem, outside of the flying, they didn't seem like they were ultra elite because there were a lot of them. So I think they would work as a core unit. And you could give them flying. You could give them something else too. Jump is just such a cool word, and you really don't see it on core outside of, you'd really only see it on a lot of times on heroes, with the exception of the Republic, and they can give the clones the jump jets, right? So you have a little bit of that, and this could be kind of an answer for that, although they probably would cost a little bit more. They might be on par with the B2's cost, but wouldn't have the B2's firepower or armor, so they'd probably die pretty quick. They might get light cover 1 too. They might have a cover 1 just built into them because of the wings. That could be another cool way to kind of make these droids a little more survivable than B1s. It's a thought. And if we're talking Techno-Union, I think we also have to include Wat Tambor. I think he's a fantastic option to show up. He would be really pretty. It'd be a beautiful miniature. Be really fun to paint. He's got a couple of different colors going on with the black gloves, the blue sleeves, the green skin, and then, of course, the shiny chrome metallic. Wat Tambor seems like a fantastic option to include. He's featured in a lot of other games as well as so you see him in like X-Wing and Armada also. So he seems like he's one of the more popular and more well-known Separatist leaders, especially after his appearance in Season 7 of the Clone Wars. He would do so much with droids. I feel like he could potentially come into this game and be a menacingly good commander. Might be so good that he has to belong to a sub-faction or a battle force of like droid-only stuff. But then again, that would be so many things. It'd be pretty tough to decide exactly what would be able to go into it and what wouldn't. So there's all kinds of interesting things. Maybe he would remove AI from his whole army or something like that, but maybe he costs 200 points and that's like the only thing he does, right? So like there's all kinds of weird things that you could do, and that's just shooting from the hip. That's not really that well thought out, but that would be a very different type of commander, because if you wanted him to just give better activation control, you don't really need that. You can take a T series tactical droid and you can have pretty good battlefield control. You can take a STD and put him in and have great battlefield control and great utility and great support. So you'd have to find him doing something like maybe the same kind of task, but doing it in a very different way. And I think Wat Tambor is a character that's able to do a lot of what the Separatist does, but he could probably do it in a very different way, which would be pretty interesting. All right, moving forward into some of my favorites here. Mother Talzin. I'd love to see Mother Talzin show up, as well as an entire, Dathomir or Night Sister presence. And I think I say Night Sister or Dathomir because while there's plenty of Night Sisters, they could be their own battle force. I think you get a better battle force if you look at a whole Dathomir kind of subset, including Night Brothers, and maybe you can of course include Asajj Ventress into this battle force. I think you also can include potentially one version of Maul, maybe a version of Savage Opress in here too. Maul's a maybe. I don't know if he would really do it or not, but I think he could. I think there's a Maul that fits into like a Mother Talzin battle force. I think it definitely works. You could even have him potentially be a leader there. You could have Asajj Ventress be a leader there. You could even get characters from the video games. You could get the zombies, all of that stuff, and it all starts with Mother Talzin. We've already seen the Emperor, so we can have Force users that don't use lightsabers. It's very easy. But then again, does she have to even use the Force? Perhaps Mother Talzin gets a magic type of upgrade, and you have a whole new type of upgrades. I don't know if that's really necessary, though. I think you give her, some spells that are Force upgrades that are like Mother Talzin only. But still give her access to things like Force Push. I don't see why she shouldn't be able to do things like Force Push and stuff like that. Because I don't, you just have to look at if any of the existing Force upgrades were a little bit OP on her, and I don't think that that's necessarily going to be true. You could even start giving her some upgrades that use 2 Force slots. Like that would be kind of cool if you want to make like a triple Force upgrade if she's going to have 3. That could be like some certain abilities that are reserved for really, really strong characters, consuming all of their Force upgrades. It's an option. There are some interesting ideas. There's a lot of cool stuff you could do with Mother Talzin, but I think she'd be a really fun miniature to do too. You can do all kinds of flowing cape effects on her, and she just opens the door to so much more. She'd be awesome. Last, but certainly not least, Django Fett. I think Django Fett is definitely got to be showing up. I mean, we've got so many mercs and bounty hunters and stuff, and while he could probably show up as just a merc that can only go in Separatist, that probably makes a lot of sense with him. You could make the case that hey, maybe he should just show up as a Separatist, because we never see him working for anyone else. And of course, his kind of reign was cut short before he could even have the opportunity to really experience any of the other factions. So I think you would be fine with just making him a straight up Separatist. But because he is a bounty hunter, because he was getting paid and recruited by Dooku, you could easily make the case that he should be a merc that just happens to go to Dooku, and that would mean that it'd be harder for somebody else to issue him orders if they didn't have underworld connections. And so that would also be kind of thematic. So I think you've got a couple of different ways to make it work. Certainly there are other bounty hunters in the Separatist faction. There are other characters I would like to have included, but at the top of my list, it's got to be Django Fett. Plus, we're getting so much Mandalorian stuff. We got different versions of Boba now. And plus, if we, I always like to run like heroes versus villains in like a homebrew scenario, and I think it'd be really fun to be able to run Django and Boba side by side, even if it's only in a homebrew kind of fantasy scenario. I think that'd be a really fun thing to do. Plus, he would be awesome to paint. Who wouldn't love to paint up a Django Fett? I know some of you have done it already. If you haven't, share your pictures in the Discord. We got Legion pictures section as well, so a lot of people post their painting progress and things like that in there. I would love to see it. All right, guys, that's going to do it for some of my predictions. Certainly not all, but I'm curious what you guys think should be showing up in this list, and maybe what should show up in next year's version of this list. I'll be doing these periodically. Plus, I'll probably be doing a mercenary-specific list of things that should show up in the game as mercs. And granted, he might make a return appearance there. Maybe not, though, because I think he leans pretty heavily towards Separatist. So I'll be looking at things that are more neutrally aligned in the next version of this. If you guys haven't already, check out some of the other videos we have. I'm going to put some links to them over here so you can check that out. I want to thank you all so much for watching. Big thanks to my patrons. You guys are absolutely amazing and help make this channel possible. So thank you for your continued support. May the Force be with you. Live long and prosper. Be excellent to each other. Don't force push your elders. And always wash your socks. I'll see you later.